Hi guys, it's Twigs, and for today's video, I'm going to be telling the story of Esther. I thought that it would be the perfect time to make this video, since Purim is right around the corner. So it all started when King Xerxes held 2 feasts, which lasted 187 days in all. During one of these feasts, Xerxes called for his wife to come and show off how beautiful she was, but she refused. This made the king very angry, so he decided to replace her by gathering all of the young women into the palace so that he could pick a new queen. Amongst the young women was a girl named Hadassah, or Esther, who had been raised by her cousin Mordecai. Oops, wrong Mordecai. There, much better. When it was finally Esther's turn to meet the king, he decided that he liked her the best, so he chose her to be the new queen. At this point, Esther still hasn't revealed her identity as a Jew, since her cousin Mordecai had advised her not to. One night, Mordecai overheard 2 officers plotting to kill the king, so he warns Esther. Esther then tells King Xerxes Mordecai's story, which ended up saving the king's life. Not long after this, a man named Haman is promoted to the king's second in command. This means that he gains lots of power and all of the king's servants are commanded to bow before him, but Mordecai refuses. This makes Haman so angry that he goes and tricks the king into paying him for the destruction of the Jews, just to get back at Mordecai. When Mordecai heard this, it upset him so badly that he put on sackcloth, covered himself in ashes, and cried out in despair outside of the king's gates. Mordecai tells Esther that she should go to the king and ask him not to destroy her people. Esther was reluctant at first because she knew that she could be killed for going to the king without holding the golden scepter, or being called on by Xerxes himself. But Mordecai convinced her that she could have been chosen as queen just for this purpose. So Esther asked the Jews to fast with her for 3 days before she went in to talk with the king. When she walked in, the king held out the golden scepter for her, because he loved Esther very much. Esther then invited Haman and Xerxes to a special feast so that she could make an important request. When it came time for her to make her request, she invited Haman and Xerxes to a second feast, so that she could make her request then. Haman left Esther's banquet and went home to brag to his wife and friends about how he was invited to the queen's private banquets, showing that he was more important than everyone but the king himself. He then complained that all of his success meant nothing as long as Mordecai was alive, so he had special gallows built to hang him on. That same night, the king couldn't fall asleep, so he asked his servant to read him the palace records as a bedtime story. While reading, the servant recounted the time when Mordecai had saved the king's life by exposing his officers' nefarious plans. Xerxes had completely forgotten the incident.
Oh yeah, what did we do to thank him for that?
Nothing, I guess.
Around that time, Haman came to ask the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows he had prepared. But right then, the king asked him for some advice.
What would you do if you were to honor a very special guy?
Who else would the king want to honor but me? Well, if I were you, I would dress him in your best clothes, put the royal crown upon his head, and have him paraded around the city on your horse.
That's a great idea! Go prepare everything you just described for Mordecai and don't leave anything out.
After that, they both went to attend Queen Esther's second feast. This is when Esther finally built up the courage to make her appeal.
My only request is that you spare my people, for someone has planned for the Jews to be destroyed.
Who is responsible for this horrible thing?
The king cried, and this is when Esther revealed Haman's plot to kill her cousin Mordecai, and how he was responsible for endangering her entire family. Completely outraged, the king had Haman hung on the very gallows that he had built for Mordecai, who then replaced Haman as the king's second in command, saving his family and ultimately preserving Yeshua's future bloodline. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Although Purim is not a commanded holiday, it is a very beneficial festival for believers to enjoy. After all, it is based on an entire book in the Bible, and it's a reminder that God cares for his people. Do you celebrate Purim? I would love to hear your Purim traditions in the comments below. I would like to thank John, Chug, Rocket, and Servant of the Most High for doing voice lines for me. They all did an absolutely fantastic job. I want to give a big shout out to Servant of the Most High's Torah Kids Gazette. Me and my siblings love to read it each week, and you guys should go check it out. You can find it on Facebook, and I'll leave a link in the description. As always, stay tuned, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.